So the question on the table is, why do good men cheat? There's a difference between why bad men cheat. They just lack morals. They lack values. They lack character. But there's something to be said about why a good man, who is a man of value, who is a man of character, who is a man of integrity, what would cause that man to fall into an adulterous affair? These next 30 minutes are going to transform your life. I want you to go grab your notebook, grab your coffee, grab your tea, silence the noise, and let's dive in as we talk about 5 reasons why good men cheat. Let's go. All right, guys. Well, welcome, man. We're going to have a brilliant conversation today. My name is David Burris. I'm a life and marriage coach. It is what I'm passionate about. It's what I do every day. I love what I do. And so today I'm going to help you. Now, I need the fellas who are watching this to lean in here. Guys, if you're looking for me to give you excuses, I'm not going to do that today. We're not going to talk about what women are doing wrong. We're not going to point any of these things to how a woman can level up. I want to talk to you about how we as men need to hold ourselves accountable. And I want to share with you some things that, if you're not careful, will lead you into a relationship you don't want to be in. Now, you also have to hear this. I'm not speaking from what I heard. I'm not speaking from a book I read. I'm speaking from experience. I've been married 22 years, and there was a period in our marriage where I stepped out. I broke my wife's trust, and it's one of the hardest things I've ever done, and even harder to get out of. And so, again, I'm not talking about what I heard. I'm talking about what I know. So I want you to hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. Make sure you're subscribed to this channel. This is a place where you can come, learn, and grow. My motto is I give you permission to think differently, and I'm going to do that today. So the first thing I want you to hear, guys, I want you to lean in here. One of the first reasons that I want to put on the table for why good men cheat, not just men, good men cheat. We're not talking about just men. There are men who are morally corrupt. Right? Men who have no values. We're not talking about them. I want to answer the question, what would make a good man who loves his family, loves his children? What would make that man who is a man of character, man of integrity, what would drive that man away? First thing I want you to hear is when a man loses sight of his purpose and his identity, he is susceptible to stepping out on his marriage. When a man loses sight of his purpose, loses sight of his identity. Men who lose touch with their sense of self, whether due to professional pressures, personal challenges, or societal expectations, may seek validation outside of their relationship. An affair can feel like a way to rediscover or reclaim a lost identity. That's interesting to hear. There are men who they step out because they have lost sight of who they were. They've lost their sense of purpose. And they think that this new relationship, the excitement of it, is going to help them rediscover or reclaim their lost identity. Now, when identity is tied too closely to external factors like career or relationships, any disruption in any one of those areas can lead to crisis, right? So we as men cannot afford to let outside things, work, business, those organizational things, those type of things, we can't let them be the source or root of our identity. Because when those things are disrupted, when money's funny, when they're acting crazy at work, when they're talking about laying off, if your identity is tied to those things, man, you're in trouble, because those things waver. And we as men cannot afford to have our lives waver, our character waver, our identity waver based on what's going on around us. But we have to be rooted in what's going on inside of us. So the first thing I need you to hear, man, is you have to hold fast to your identity and hold fast to your purpose. Hold fast to why you exist, because that will root you in times when things around you are being uprooted. All right, guys. So the second reason I want to put on the table for why good men cheat is good men are often craving autonomy. Craving autonomy. What does that mean? Some men may subconsciously feel trapped by the responsibilities of their roles as husbands, as fathers, as providers, as leaders, as protectors. An affair can falsely feel like a way to reclaim independence or reclaim control over your life. And so there are men who feel almost like they're in a prison to responsibility, in a prison to being a husband, in a prison to being a father. Have you ever felt like that? Man, I felt like that before in my life, where it felt like I just could not escape responsibility. Here's what's really crazy if you really think about it. And it's in those instances that craving for autonomy leads us to an irresponsible relationship because we're trying to escape responsibility. Sometimes when we feel tethered or tied to responsibility, man, that can mess with our mind because it feels like you can never escape. You wake up thinking about responsibility. You go to bed thinking about responsibility. All throughout the day, you're thinking about responsibility. Man, if you're not careful, you will find yourself dealing with someone in an illegal, unhealthy, toxic, adulterous relationship, trying to escape responsibility and seeking autonomy. And the desire often stems from your internal struggles rather than external constraints. There's some things that go on inside of us as men that if we're not careful, man, that stuff will drive us crazy. And healthy outlets for autonomy, such as hobbies or self-improvement exercises, can help us. But if we don't have those things in place, man, we'll start looking, if we're not careful, for that autonomy, that release of responsibility in unhealthy relationships. So I want you to hear that, man. A search and a crave for autonomy, if you're not careful, man, will lead you into an adulterous relationship. All right, guys, let's talk about number 3. This is critical. Unhealthy boundaries. We're talking about 5 reasons why good men cheat. Reason number 3 is when a man has unhealthy boundaries, it becomes easy for him to step out and to make unwise decisions. Poor boundary setting, both with others and with oneself, can make it easier to engage in an inappropriate relationship or inappropriate relationships. A lack of clarity about what is acceptable can lead to a slippery slope, and a slippery slope can often lead you into a relationship that you don't need to be in. You got to have boundaries, man. Boundaries are critical, and you have to have boundaries not just for other people, but man, you've got to have boundaries for yourself. And in order to have boundaries for yourself, you have to know your proclivities. You have to know your weaknesses. I want to put this on the table for you. Our job as protectors, I want you to lean in here, man. Come a little closer to the screen. This is going to help you. Our job as protectors is not just to protect the people in our household from outside predators. Here it is. But we've got to protect them from the inside predator as well. There's an irresponsible man in you. Inside of every man is a king and a kid. Let me say it again. Inside of every one of us is a king and a kid. And if you don't have an intimate relationship with the kid in you, he will show his face in the most inopportune times. And so, man, instead of stuffing him away, instead of pushing him deep into the back of the closet where most of us do, man, you got to have a relationship with that little guy in you. If you don't talk to little you, and if you don't have an intimate relationship with you, you will turn your head and little you will come out to play and ruin everything that you have built. And so you have to have boundaries even within yourself. You got to have boundaries with the version of you that you don't need out in this world making decisions for you. What do boundaries do? Boundaries protect your integrity. Boundaries protect your character. Boundaries protect your purpose. Boundaries protect your identity. And clear internal and external boundaries are essential to safeguard against temptation. I want to give you this, man. Temptation is not a sin. I want you to hear that. Temptation is not a sin. In fact, temptation is a beautiful thing. Dave, what? Absolutely. Let me tell you why. Temptation is always an indicator that the thing that is after you doesn't have you. Let me say that again. Temptation is always an indicator that the thing that is after you, the thing that is trying to draw you away, the thing that is tempting you doesn't already have you. And so even Christ was tempted. If you go look at the Bible, it says he was tempted. He's familiar with our infirmities. And so for you to be tempted, man, that's not a sin. In fact, you're a man and you will likely always be tempted for the rest of your life, but you've got to have strong boundaries so that those temptations don't lead you down a path that you don't need to go down. So the third thing I need you to hear is unhealthy boundaries can lead a good man to cheat. Well, guys, I want to pause here just for a second to give you number 4. But before I give you number 4, I want to lean in and tell you this. I have just 4 slots left in a program that I've launched called Husband School. Husband School is an amazing coaching program for men that's designed to take you further, faster towards purpose and towards purposeful relationships by elevating how you show up. Because we as men, if we're not emotionally healthy, emotionally intelligent, we can't lead effectively. You can't lead a woman effectively if you don't know how to feel her. And you can't feel her if you run from your own feelings. One of the greatest decisions that I've ever made in my life was allowing myself to feel and teaching myself how to process my feelings so that I don't let my feelings rule me. So that I don't let my feelings drive me into unhealthy relationships because I don't have boundaries. All right, so let me give you by the way, that link is in the caption of this video. I want you to sign up. Again, I got 4 slots left. So if you are a man who needs some coaching, especially around the area of being a husband, if you're a single man who wants to position yourself to thrive as a husband, you need this course, man. Hit that link below. Let me teach you how to become emotionally healthy husbands so that we can go further, faster towards purpose and purposeful relationships. Let me give you number 4. We're talking 5 reasons why good men cheat. Number 4, unresolved trauma. Woo! Unresolved trauma. Past emotional or psychological wounds, such as childhood neglect or previous heartbreak or abandonment or unresolved feelings of inadequacy, can resurface, and they resurface in destructive ways. Those things are never coming to serve you well. I need you to hear that. Those things are never coming to serve you well. They're always coming to get you off track. And so I have to deal with our unresolved trauma so that those things aren't making a decision for us. Infidelity might act as an unhealthy coping mechanism if you're not careful. You might assume that this relationship is the way that you're going to cope with the trauma. What you're doing is making it worse because you're piling more pain on top of the former pain, which leads to deeper pain, which leads to deeper trouble, which leads you away from who you are intended to be. And so you and I have to stop running from the trauma. We have to stop running from the pain. Listen, we've got to stop running from the emotions that come along with those things and confront them. You may need a therapist. You may need a coach. You may need community. You may need to get around some men who have dealt with these things in their life. But you running from it, man, is not going to get you any closer to who God's called you to be. So we have to really deal with the trauma. Until these traumas are addressed, they can manifest in ways that undermine even the most stable relationships. Let me say that again. When these traumas are not addressed, they can subconsciously manifest and begin undermining even the most stable relationships. That's why you've met guys. Perhaps you are the guy where things were going well. The relationship was going well. Nothing was wrong. Everything was right. And all of a sudden, it felt like things were being shaken up in your relationship and within yourself. That's because you have some unresolved trauma. There's some things that are coming to haunt you. Remember that little boy I talked about? That little version of you? That guy comes with some trauma. He comes with some pain. He comes with some adversity. He comes with some things that he's dealt with. Man, and if you don't deal with that, he's going to make decisions for you. And you don't want the kid in you making the decisions that the king in you should make. So you've got to deal with your unresolved trauma. All right, now listen, number 5 is probably the most important of all of these. I need you to lean in here. A lack of emotional intelligence. A lack of emotional intelligence. What is emotional intelligence? It's the ability to identify, to process, to articulate and manage your emotions and to a certain degree the emotions of others. And if you don't have the ability to identify what's going on with you, if you don't have the ability to articulate what's going on, if you can't process what's going on, if you don't know how to manage what's going on, man, you're going to lead yourself into some dark, dark places. Because what happens now is your emotions begin making decisions where stability should be making the decisions, where maturity should be making the decisions. So you got to deal with this emotional intelligence piece. Until we become healthy, until we become balanced, until we become sound in our emotions, we are subject to make wrong decisions for our heart. So you and I have to really lock in and focus on emotional. And again, that's why I'm running this husband school course, because I need you to become an emotionally intelligent man. It's going to change the way you lead, man. It's going to change the way you love. It's going to change the way you experience yourself when you become emotionally intelligent, when you can identify what's going on with you. Listen, when you don't know what's going on in your heart, you are literally imprisoned by yourself. I know that sounds crazy. When I can identify a feeling, when something's going on with me and I don't know how to find out what's going on with me, man, I become a prisoner to me. That's scary, because if I can identify what's going on, I don't know how to manage it. And if I don't know how to manage it, I'm afraid that whatever's going on is going to burst out of me. Man, you've got to become more emotionally intelligent. A lot of good men have found themselves in unhealthy, adulterous relationships because they didn't know how to manage their emotions. And their emotions drove them into the arms of someone who was not healthy for them. All right, guys. So listen, we're going to take a moment to recap. And I want you to, if you don't mind, I want you to comment below and let me know which of these spoke loudest to you. We're talking about the 5 reasons why good men cheat. Reason number 1, losing sight of your purpose and identity. Losing sight of your purpose and identity is a dangerous thing, and in many cases is what causes good men to cheat. And then we talked about number 2, craving autonomy. That word autonomy just means the ability to be free in your decision making. Men often crave autonomy because they feel imprisoned by responsibility. And so we have to really deal with that piece, because it's driving a lot of good men into making bad decisions. Number 3, unhealthy boundaries. You've got to have boundaries with people, but you've also got to have boundaries with yourself. Remember, we talked about inside of every man, there's a king and a kid. And if you don't have boundaries, you'll let the kid make the decisions, the conversations, even the connections that the king in you should be making. So we've got to get some boundaries in place so that we're not making bad decisions as good men. Number 4, remember, we talked about unresolved trauma. Those things that we have never dealt with, the things that we've hidden from, that molestation when you were younger, that abandonment, that heartbreak, those things will cause you, if you're not careful, to make unhealthy decisions for your heart. And so we want to really deal with the unresolved trauma. And the last one we talked about is a lack of emotional intelligence, the inability to identify your feelings, to process your feelings, to articulate your feelings, and to manage your feelings, and to do the same for others. If you don't have that ability, man, there's no way that you can really lead effectively. All right, so I want you to comment below. Let me know which of those things spoke loudest to you. Ladies, if you're watching this, I want you to know, I want to hear from you. Have you ever experienced this in a relationship with a man? And if so, how did that play out? Again, I want you to hit the caption of this video. I got 4 slots left for husband school. Hopefully by the time you're watching this, they're not taken. Let me teach you how to become the type of man God's called you to be, that you desire to be, and that is most effective in your relationships with others. Again, my name is David Burris. Thank you for tuning in, and I give you permission to think differently. By the way, YouTube has a video they want you to watch, and I think you should watch it. Until next time, y'all, take care.